And now I'd like to welcome back to the show congressional candidate for Oregon's 3rd District, Albert Lee. Welcome back to the Damage Report.
Hey there, how's it going? Thank you.
It's good, glad to have you here. You're coming on the wake of a good weekend in politics, so we're very excited to catch up with your race. It's been a couple of months since we last spoke, so tell us how things have been going.
Yes, first of all, I think you're right. It's been a great couple of days. I'm part of that political revolution that started in Iowa, moved on to New Hampshire and down to Nevada, and now moving on to South Carolina. Quite frankly, I think that a very large percentage of the population is tired of a government that only works for those at the very top and not all of us. So as far as this race is concerned, we are doing very well. We are knocking on many doors, meeting with many different people, doing lots of interviews today. We've got 4 interviews, as a matter of fact, and we're getting the word out. Obviously, we're doing this without any corporate contributions. We're doing this 100% backed by the people, and that's the way to do it.
I want to ask you something I've been thinking a lot about in a number of these contested primaries where you're lucky if you get 1 poll, and most of them don't even get 1 poll. So when you're going month by month and you're trying to get an idea of how you're doing, what are some of the things you're turning to get an idea, potentially in the absence of any reliable polling information?
Certainly. Well, social media does help us a lot. And then, like I said, when we're out on the streets and in the neighborhoods, I've been stopped repeatedly by many people who have said, thank you for running. Thank you for being out there. Thank you for giving us an opportunity, a chance for a voice, our voice to be heard. I know that our incumbent has done 1 poll so far, asking if people are ready for a socialist to represent them. And I appreciate that. And I know that we're making him run a really hard campaign. I mean, he's updated his website. He's knocking on doors. You're going to see bumper stickers from him apparently as well. First time for all of those things, because quite frankly, in the 2.5 decades that he's been in office, he's never had to run.
It's funny because what you just described, we've seen in other candidacies where finally they have to do something because they're taking a primary seriously. But it is sort of sad that taking it seriously means updating a website, which is probably something he told one of his employees to do, and knocking on doors. I mean, maybe having a town hall, that's something. That's democracy in action.
Well, I'll tell you what democracy in action is. Democracy in action is having open forums and open debates. It's something that our incumbent is afraid to do. He is afraid to acknowledge this campaign. He's afraid to go and stand up against his 24 years of service. And I think that is just unfortunate for the people.
So I want to talk to you about one of the components of your platform that I'm not sure that we got to in our previous conversation back in October of last year, but you're in favor of a maximum wage. Now, a lot of people have heard obviously about the minimum wage and debates about potentially raising it. Tell us about the concept of a maximum wage.
Certainly. So, I mean, when you look at the 1950s versus today, in the 1950s, it was a 7-to-1 ratio, an 8-to-1 ratio from the person at the very top of a company to the person at the very bottom and what they made. Today, I think that figure is something like 800-to-1. And that is absolutely obscene. It's part of that immense wealth gap that we have. And quite frankly, we have had a suppression of our minimum wage to the point that over the last 40 years, while productivity has gone through the roof, that has created this immense wealth gap. Now, one way to curb that might be to provide a maximum wage. In other words, if you have a maximum wage, you cannot make more than a certain multiplier of the minimum wage, which would help to raise that minimum wage.
Well, and it would certainly help to fight income inequality, obviously, by its very nature. So I'm curious.
Flatten it all together, We right now we here in the States, we have, if you look at the minimum wage from the 1970s to now and just pegged it to inflation, the minimum wage should be somewhere in the neighborhood of $33 an hour, and it's not.
I'm curious. So you're running. You're a vocal supporter of Bernie Sanders. So obviously, having in this race, that must come with some benefits for someone with your message. On the other side, you now have Mike Bloomberg, who's running, the wealthiest person potentially ever to run for president, certainly in our lifetime, spending hundreds of millions of dollars. Does that help too? People seeing how, when we talk about income inequality, we're not talking necessarily about millionaires or even billionaires, but people who have far more money than billionaires do.
Right. Yeah, I mean, when you look at somebody like Bloomberg, I think he just activates regular people who are just frustrated by the inequality. I mean, the hundreds of millions of dollars that he spent on the campaign. I remember reading an article. It basically, if you peg that to what an average person makes, he's spent the amount or the equivalent of a large pepperoni pizza. to do his race, and that's just obscene to have that kind of amount of money and not have to really do the campaign and talk to the people. And you saw in that debate how he absolutely just got demolished. We need true fighters. We need people that are going to represent the people, who are going to stand up for regular everyday folks. And I think that we need true citizen representatives. It's time that we get rid of all of the career elite multimillionaire politicians, replace them with citizen representatives who know the struggle, who won't take corporate contributions, who will truly represent and fight for the people. For instance, our incumbent talks about having publicly funded campaigns and ending getting money out of politics, but 65% of his money comes from corporations. 100% of our contributions come from people. And we're taking the hard road, but we think that this is the right way to do it.
So your primary is May 19th. You still have a little bit of time. If people would like to find out more about your run, where can they go?
AlbertLee2020.com is the best place to go. You can also find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn.
Okay, Albert Lee, once again, thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.